It's knowing that your door is always open and your path is free to walk. It makes me tend to leave my sleeping bag rolled up and stashed behind your couch. It's knowing I'm not shackled by forgotten words and laws and the ink stains that have dried upon some line. That keeps you in the back roads by the rivers of my memory. That keeps you ever gentle on my mind. It's not clinging to the rocks and ivy painted on their columns now that bind me. Or something that somebody said because they thought we fit together walking. It's not knowing that the world will not be cursing or forgiving when I walk around the railroad track and find that you're moving on the back roads by the rivers of my memory, and hours you're just gentle on my mind. Though the wheat fields and the clotheslines and the junkyards and the highways come between us, and some other woman's crying to her mother 'cause she turned and I was gone, I still might run in silence, tears of joy might stain my face, and the summer sun might burn me till I'm blind. But not to where I cannot see you walking on the back roads by the rivers flowing gentle on my mind. I dip my cup of soup back from a gurgling, crackling cauldron in some train yard. My beard a rustling towel and a dirty hat pulled low across my face. Through cup hands round the tin can, I pretend to hold you to my breast and find that you're waiting from the back roads by the rivers of my memories, ever smiling, ever gentle on my mind.
Everybody, Chris McDonald with you as we have a very special Early Bird Tuesday. The only time we ever have an early bird would have to be with Johnson because he has to be in bed by 8:30 or Elvis will start banging on the garage and says, "All right, Johnson, turn the lights off and turn the music down. I got to go to sleep in here." But it's good to see my buddy, former CIA operative. I know you're going to kill me yourself for some of this stuff one day. But anyway, it's good. I know you know where I live, exactly. It's good to see you, buddy. It's been a while, and hey, it's good to see you. And good Lord, this country's in a mess, but we're grateful for you. We got James coming on Thursday night, so we got this back-to-back. I do want to get with y'all sometime soon. I'd love to do a panel with both of you. We couldn't work it out tonight, but sometime soon we're going to do that with both of you, and that'd be great. But it's good to see you, man. How are you?
Chris, doing very well. By the way, now that intro song, you always play the same intro song, and I was kind of listening to the tenor of the voice that sings that song, and I'm wondering, is that something you've recorded? Is that your singing voice in there?
No, that's me. That's me. Yeah,
that does sound like you.
Yeah.
I do have a request then. Whenever I'm on your show again, don't play that song. I think what you should play is, a James Bond sort of thing. I mean, let's get the mood going.
Oh,
some sort of secret agent man song or something like that.
I will look for something, and I will do that. I've got a website that we use for our music that's not copyright issued. So I'm going to look for you a theme song. I will do that. That's a great point. I think the last time I tried that one night with you, and freaking Facebook yanked my channel down for about a half hour because this music copyright stuff is so really weird. But anyway, I'll do that just for you, Johnson. Just for you.
Thank you. I mean, you're already recording your own music. Certainly, you can record a James Bond version of it.
I will go find somebody to help me record a James Bond version of "Gentle on My Bide." I'm wondering how that's going to sound, but my music career will be over after I do that. But I will try that. The big news today, and I brought you on here because I wanted to get somebody's take on it. That I know you follow this pretty closely, and ultimately, before we say it, I know it's not going to go anywhere. It ain't going to matter. But I think that we need to go on record tonight to understand what Mr. HUR, the special counsel, said today in front of Congress as it relates to Joe Biden. And he basically said, point blank, verbatim, and I'll read the quote. I'll just go ahead and read the quote to everybody tonight because it's very important. He says that Joe Biden, quote, which is in quotes, this ain't Chris's wording, but he willfully retained classified information. However, he decided not to charge him. HUR said there is evidence Biden retained classified notebooks knowing that he was not allowed to do so. And the Justice Department went on further to say that they did not bring charges against Biden because, quote, he is a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. Now, this is my issue with it. If they're going to apply that standard to somebody that will, and by the way, I want to make it clear, Joe Biden did not have a right to do that because he was not a president. It was after the time him and Obama left office. He was a private citizen. He didn't have a right to that. And Vice President, I think this is right, but he had no business sticking stuff in his garage. Brad, we got Donald Trump on trial down in Florida for the exact same thing. But they're not calling him a sympathetic man that has a poor memory. No, they're trying to put his ass in jail for the rest of his life. So the double standard here is sickening, but in your humble opinion, I know it ain't going to happen, but in a real world of justice where justice is really, truly going to be right, what does Joe Biden deserve in this case? He deserves the same fate as Trump, as far as I'm concerned tonight. What say you, buddy?
Yes, I mean certainly he's broken the law, so he should pay the price for whatever price there is under those laws. He should be prosecuted and convicted. I mean they're quite conclusive that he broke a number of laws, taking classified documents home.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a number of things. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, the night and day justice that we see, it's just something I've been saying for a long time, and Chris, you and I have touched on it and both agree. I mean, Department of Justice has been consumed by the Democrat Party. It no longer exists to enforce U.S. laws fairly and things like that. What they do is, they'll go out and enforce laws too, but if it comes down to a political issue, they only enforce the Democrat Party perspective. They do not do anything for conservatives. And we've seen, by the way, the 6 January prosecutions have been going on, that they're persecuting the political opposition groups that don't support the Democrat Party. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's what DOJ is. You can't trust them anymore. You can't trust any of them. We've seen that with the FBI and law enforcement at the federal level in general. Not local law enforcement's a little different. And there's still a lot of good people in the FBI that are out in the different states working around. I would say there are fewer good people in the DOJ. It's worse. It's a relatively small organization, and it's kind of a revolving door with, you go work at CNN for a couple of years and then go back to DOJ and then go work on some senator's staff and then go back to DOJ. I mean, come on, that's the revolving door. They're all doing that stuff, especially at the senior levels. But there's a couple of things on this that really stand out to me. One is that, as you mentioned earlier, I'm retired CIA. What we haven't talked about is my background. very much lately in these shows, but I was a CIA operations guy. I was a chief of station multiple times out overseas. Now, things have evolved at the CIA. They're a little bit different now than they were, even a few years ago. But one of the things that almost nobody realizes is that as a chief of station in previous times, we had the authority to declassify documents. Under my authorities as a chief of station, I declassified documents God knows how many times. I mean, I never counted or kept track. It was just something that happened all the time. So it wasn't, a big deal by our standard because we do it. But what that means is I've worked with these authorities. I understand them well. Now, of course, my authority as a chief of station doesn't compare to the authorities of the President of the United States, but nevertheless, it's the same bodies of regulations and laws. So a couple of things, some of the differences between what happened with Joe Biden and President Trump. Now, President Trump was President of the United States and took classified documents home.
Right.
Under U.S. law, the President of the United States, by the act of taking it, declassifies it. If you have any questions on that, this is precisely what people went after Obama on. And in the Obama administration, after he left office, it went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court confirmed that Obama, as President of the United States, by the act of taking it home, declassified it. So this has already been found by the Supreme Court to be the case. So whatever Trump took home that was classified, and they're saying, oh, it was this, that, and the other, it doesn't matter.
Exactly
right.
He
declassified it by the act of taking it home. That is U.S. law as confirmed and found by the U.S. Supreme Court to be the case. Well, if that's the law for Obama, then that's the law for Trump. I'm sorry to anyone that doesn't like that. But, we put up with it for Obama, so shut up and put up with it for Trump because that's the law. Democrats don't care about the law. DOJ doesn't care about the law. These renegade prosecutors that are out there, they don't care about the law. All they care about is going after the political opposition. So that's why Trump is always out there saying this is a witch hunt, because it's a witch hunt. It's a witch hunt. That's all it is. Now, in the case of Biden, many of these documents go back decades. Long before he was president of the United States.
Right.
He's still president of the United States. So he hasn't taken anything home with him yet, because this is all from his time as vice president and senator. Now, bizarre as it may sound, I had authorities as a chief of station that he did not have as senator and did not have as vice president, because he did not ever have the authority to declassify documents. So he would have had to go through a process of declassification. Now, as a senator, could he gotten some of that done? Yeah, a little bit, not tons of it, but he could have gotten some of it done, but he would have had to jump through hoops. There are procedures he would have had to follow. As vice president, he would have had a lot easier time doing it, but he did not do that. He did not follow the procedures, which, by the way, if you go back and look at what all the pundits were saying about Trump, that was their criticism of Trump. But that's not the law. As president of the United States, he has the authority. By taking it home, he declassifies it. That's the law. That is not the case with a vice president of the United States. That's not the case with a senator or a congressman. They cannot take classified documents home. In fact, a lot of times they aren't even able to leave the SCIF, the classified room where they're given documents. A lot of times they're not even allowed to take them out of that room or make notes of them even, or reproduce them in any way. So you have a case of a guy, black and white, one, Trump, who almost certainly did nothing wrong, and his documents were kept in a locked room. This is what how a lot of this got kicked off, was because they were saying, oh, well, you need another lock. And so those were the discussions early on with Trump. It's like, well, yeah, okay, well, I'll put another lock on then. Whatever it needs to be, I'm happy to do. That's not that big a deal. And he was doing those things and did put an additional lock on this room where this stuff was being kept. Biden had them strewn about in his garage and things like that. And the FBI goes into Mar-a-Lago, takes those things and throws them out on the floor, takes pictures of them and says, see what we found? Well, yeah, you found them in a locked room, and then you took them out, threw them on the floor, and took a picture. In Biden's case, they were willy-nilly stacked in his garage next to his Corvette, and he says he didn't even know they were there, according to her, that he'd forgotten all those things were there. But yet in other things he was talking about, well, he knew this was there and that was there and all of this, but classified documents going back decades, some of the things to know is each classified document that he has at home is illegal individually. In other words, he could be prosecuted for each document. Each of those could be done. Any prosecutor that has jurisdiction on this could go after Biden for this stuff, but as you and I have already talked about, they're not going to do it.
No.
But I will say, to HUR's credit, I think HUR is saying the truth when his look at it. DOJ and any lawyer out there who knows anything at all will confirm what I'm saying here to be true. I'm not a lawyer, but they will confirm this to be true, and that is that DOJ does not go after cases they don't think they can win.
They don't think they can win.
They look at these things, and if they don't look at it and go, well, it's 90% we're going to win this case, or 95% we're going to win this case, if they don't see that, then they'll do something else. They'll settle or let it go or whatever they're going to do, but they won't go after the case in court because they only want to win to maintain their reputation and all. So what HUR did was, his job was to say what he thought could be done. Now, he documented how Biden broke the law, but what he did look at was, well, if I took this case to court, blindfold on, if I just took this old man who he says he did not say this guy has dementia, but that's proper. He should not have said he has dementia because he's not a healthcare professional sort of guy. So that's not his job to diagnose what's going on. But he did document the fact that this guy's got memory issues. So, two things out of that. One, if on Trump, they made him take a mental health exam to prove that he was mentally capable of being president, which he did in the past. I think based on this HUR report, what Republicans should do is demand the same thing of Biden. Biden, you were screaming for Trump to do it. All of you Democrats are screaming for Trump to do it. Now put up or shut up.
Come on,
are
buddy.
you hypocrites or are you real?
No,
this guy, we have documented DOJ evidence that he's mentally impaired. We want to know the depth of it. Can this man handle being president of the United States or not? He was let off these things where he was clearly guilty. It's one or the other. Either he knew what he was doing and should be prosecuted, or he's mentally not all there and can't handle being president. One of those two things is true. That should be the Republican position, but the Republicans, being a bunch of ballless wonders, I'm sure will do absolutely nothing.
No, they won't.
Where are the congressmen and senators standing up saying that? Well, let's give him the mental health test. You guys say he's sharp as a tack? Great. Let's give him the exact same test by the exact same guy that did Trump, and let's see what the results are of that. If he is declared mentally competent, then he needs to be prosecuted for what he did. Now, one of the other things I want to draw everybody's attention to is this is not the first time this precise thing has happened in almost the same way, very similar way. Think back about former FBI Director James Comey and Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
And back in July of 2002 or 3, whatever it was, Comey comes out. All these classified documents are out there everywhere. They all got out because of what Hillary Clinton did. So all those documents are out to the world. Everybody who's worth a penny in the intelligence world had looked at all of that stuff, and it was from a bunch of different agencies. All of that stuff that remains true for what they're saying Trump has at home, what they're saying Biden had at home, and what they're saying Hillary Clinton had at home. So James Comey comes out in his speech, and he lists all this stuff that Hillary Clinton did wrong. I don't know. But what he says at the end of it is, well, no prosecutor would go after this. This is just some old lady who was sloppy with some stuff, but there was no ill intent or anything like that. So case closed. Now, he's not even a prosecutor. He was the director of the FBI. That's not even his job. But he did almost exactly the same thing that Robert HUR did right here with this case with Biden. So I think there's zero chance that was lost on HUR. HUR meaning his last name, HUR. He understood, the DOJ guy understood precisely what he was doing. So I think there was a level of honesty to it, what he was saying, but I think there was a level of disingenuousness on his part in what he was doing. I think he recognized that he was pulling a James Comey.
Oh, yeah.
And he was, he had a peg to hang his hat on because he said the guy, an old guy, everybody would like him. He's a decent old man with a bad memory. so they wouldn't be able to convict him in court.
Do you think that he was pressured? Do you think that he was pressured into this today by Merrick Garland? Do you think that his bosses sort of told him to do this, or do you think HUR is the stand-up guy? Because, you know, Brad, the thing about these special counsels, and we saw this in Bob Mueller's case, and I get sort of weary. I don't know how the people out there feel about this tonight, but I get weary of these special counsels because, you know, they're supposed to be fair brokers in this, but they rarely are. They're all partisan. And, you know, if a Republican president's in place and they hire special counsel, I guess Trump was the exception because Bob Mueller, there was nothing fair about him. And if it wouldn't have been for Jeff Sessions' dumbass move to recuse himself, we would have never had Rod Rosenstein or Steen, and then we wouldn't have had Bob Mueller to begin with. And these attorney generals are just as crooked as night as day. And what's your thoughts on that? I mean, do you consider him a stand-up guy? I found it a joke to begin with when Biden said that they were going to hire their own special counsel to investigate the president. That's like the fox saying, I'm going to go into the hen house and see who's eating those hens.
Yeah, and actually, I do not think he's an upstanding guy. I don't think he's a complete scumbag. I think he's half and half. I think he knew what he was doing, and he did it purposefully. But I think his report and what he did was relatively accurate. I think he laid a lot of the things out as he saw them. But the way I think he did come to the conclusion that he was going to have to recommend no prosecution. And he went back and found an argument to substantiate that. I think there is an argument to substantiate it, and he used it. But I think that's what he did. It's the typical leftist slant on things. Come to the conclusion and then go find what you can find to support that conclusion. So I think that's kind of what he is. And you don't, I mean, you cannot, DOJ doesn't do its job anymore. It's not an honest organization. And you do not get treated fairly if you're a known conservative activist or leading politician because you're the political opposition. And if you're a Democrat, they overlook what you've done. I mean, let's take Hillary Clinton because that's so well documented. Oh, and by the way, the interference from the White House is well documented. It even came out today. They had copies of the memos of where the White House had called them in and was telling them don't do this or do that. Yeah. All these things. So it's documented that they were interfering with it. What do you do about that?
What a joke.
I guess nothing. Yeah, I mean, if Trump had done that, he'd have been there's an uproar and everything. But let me go back to what Hillary Clinton did, just because this gets forgotten and people don't understand how a lot of this works. What Hillary Clinton did was she was putting all of this stuff out from her personal server, all the classified information out on her personal server, so she could get it on her phone. She had one of those. What are those old-fashioned phones? I don't even remember the name of them. That you can. They're made with all the little
the dial phones, the touchstone phones. Yeah, I know which ones you're
dial phones. Yeah, not quite that far back. But anyway, she wanted these on her little cell phone.
Yeah. And flip phones.
So she was reading all her traffic, all of the classified information. What was it called?
Flip phones.
Do you remember? No, I don't remember. It doesn't matter.
You don't know.
Okay, so she was reading all this stuff on there. So what does it take to get classified information on your private emails, like just your civilian email address? So what happened is her staff, BlackBerry, it was the BlackBerry phones.
BlackBerry, that's it.
Yeah.
Pam said, yeah.
What her staff did was she would print off classified documents, because the classified document system on your computer at the office, if you're in a classified environment, does not hook up to the internet. You cannot just like copy paste or forward a classified document from your classified computer to a regular computer. You can't do that. So the only way to get that off of there is to print it off. When they printed those off, they cut the header off and the footer off, which says that the document is classified. That's where those classified document markings are. Sometimes each paragraph, not always, but sometimes each paragraph is also individually marked with a classification. So what happened is they cut the header and footer off those classified documents, and they scanned them, and then they loaded that onto an email and sent it to Hillary. And that's how all those classified documents got out there. When they did the investigation of all of this, and by the way, we're talking thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of documents. So there was a staff doing this full time, which, by the way, Hillary Clinton would get these print off at home of classified documents. And her, I don't know if she was like a Honduran or some foreign Central American maid, would go get those classified documents and bring them to her, at where they were printed off on a secure manner phone. And so she would get these things on her phone, the tens of thousands of classified documents. And when she was asked about this in court, what did she say? She said, well, they weren't marked classified at the time. And they weren't, because she cut the classifications off, not her personally, but her staff, cut the classifications off and scanned it. But it also added in the investigation that some of the paragraphs were individually marked, which is precisely the way it works. So you had somebody systematically break the law tens of thousands of times by taking all these classified documents and sending them out on your server at home, which any idiot, I mean, the Chinese, the Russians, the North Koreans, probably the Cubans, probably 15 or 20 other services all had access to that. Because to break into somebody's home server is child's play. That's not a difficult thing to do. So everybody had access to what the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, was reading in her classified documents. Everybody was doing it. And that's the speech where James Comey came out and said, this was just sloppy handling. Nothing was meant to be done on purpose. And I agree. I don't think Hillary Clinton did this to show it to the Chinese. I think she did it because she's a lazy asshole.
Yeah.
That's what I think it was.
Yeah.
But
let me interject this though, Brad. Okay, she's a lazy asshole, but let me tell you something. She broke the law. And again, what bothers me and burns me to the crisp is I get all this. I understand what you're saying. But why Trump is doing no different and probably less dangerous stuff than they ever did to expose the country to a security threat. But because this is political season and they're hell-bent on making sure he don't get to that ticket in November, they're trying to put him in jail for something that others have done, if not worse, and the current president has done in a worse manner. And this is what burns my ass with HUR. He sits there today with a straight face, tells Congress, basically, it sounded like James Comey Jr. to me. He broke the law. He willingly did it. He willfully did it. He knew what he was doing. He even had a notebook that told him he wasn't supposed to do this, but he did it. But this poor senile old man, didn't say senile, but this poor man with a poor memory, we just can't prosecute him as the Justice Department. They don't give Trump that deference, my friend. So I get all that you're saying, but this is what pisses us off out here in this country. We're seeing two standards of justice, Brad. And I guarantee you, I want to ask you a question. If you would have done this, okay, Brad Johnson, the darling of CNN and the darling of the social media, the darling of YouTube, do you think they'd have give you this preference and this deference and said, well, Johnson thinks Elvis lives in his basement up there, so he's a little cuckoo anyway. But I mean, do you think that they would give Johnson? Do you think they give you that deference or me if we were sitting in that place that Joe Biden's sitting in tonight? Hell no, they wouldn't.
Of course not. They would not. I mean, if I had done anything like that, first of all, it wouldn't even occur to me. And what do I want a bunch of classified documents at home for anyway? What good does it do me? Why would I even want them? So. Absolutely not. I would have been sitting in jail till I rot. I mean, there's a case not too long ago of a guy who was, a submarine crew in the U.S. Navy.
That's right.
And he took a photograph of him sitting at his desk just to show his mom, and he sent it to her. And it just happened to have some little classified thing behind him. He did not do it on purpose. Didn't think about anything being classified. Wasn't aware he was doing it, and he went to prison for that. And that was one photograph. And let's not forget Petraeus.
Jennifer Petraeus. I thought about him today.
Sent sliced bread, but he was showing classified documents that he had at home.
To a girlfriend.
That's a mistake. But he had him at home, locked in his desk, and he showed him to his girlfriend, who's his biographer. But by the way, she had a clearance, and he showed those things to her. But he had it at home, and he got cashiered for that. But this is one of those things where I would say this is not a two-tiered system of justice.
It's 5.
We have a three-tiered system of justice now,
right.
because we have the
right.
Democrats, which they do not get prosecuted no matter what the hell they do. They do not get prosecuted. And Joe Biden got caught on the mic saying nobody F's with a Biden.
Exactly.
And that's essentially it. He meant what he said. He's the mafia Don, the Teflon Don. Nobody can F with him. So what is he worried about? He'll be dead before any of this comes up. Maybe Hunter will get in some trouble, but I doubt that too.
I doubt that
At any
too.
rate, so that's tier one. There's the elite leftist mob that is untouchable, and there are probably a few of the go along to get along Mitch McConnells that are in that batch, along with the Democrats who are basically untouchable. And then you have the second tier of justice, which is already ordinary citizens out there in the United States doing whatever they do, and they screw up or make a mistake, or they're just plain criminal and they think they're going to be able to steal or whatever and get ahead. You have that is what's traditionally the system of justice, where you commit a crime, you get investigated and prosecuted and put in jail for it, or convicted and put in jail for it. And then you have the third tier of justice. The third tier of justice is that you're not a Democrat, you're a conservative, and that you're fighting against the Democrats politically in an open, honest way that should be free and fair, but you are persecuted, not prosecuted, persecuted. And that's what we see happening to Donald Trump. That's what we see happening to those people on the January 6th stuff. These are our persecutions
exactly
of political opposition. Nothing more, nothing less. So this is a three-tiered system. The old-fashioned system is tier 2. The Democrats are above the law, and it doesn't matter what the conservatives do because they're below the law. They don't get the protection under the law of any other citizen. I wish there was a way we could do a class action suit against the entire USG and put a lot of those a-holes in jail, or at least put them out of business, and revamp the whole thing. I mean, that's the one hope we have, and why I came out and endorsed Trump so long ago, is because he's the only politician that understands this at the gut level, because he is suffering from it more than anybody else out there.
Yeah,
he's constantly being harassed for this stuff.
Buddy. That's why they're scared of him, buddy. That's why they're scared, and that's why they do not want to see him in that White House, because I think they know this. I think the left is very aware of what you just described. Listen, we got about 15 minutes. And folks, if you've got a question for Brad tonight, as it relates to what we're talking about, please put it in the chat. Now, Brad can't solve whether the Lindbergh baby is still alive or not, or whether the Easter Bunny's real, or whether Elvis is... Or you can.
Baby's dead.
Okay. Just make sure.
Elvis, yes, damn it, he's here.
Or whether aliens exist. You know, we haven't done something in a long time. We did a fun show. People don't even remember it except the oldies. We did a fun show one night when we talked about all these conspiracies that the CIA has been accused of hiding up with these little green men. We have to do that again soon. That might be something we can do this spring. But I do want to ask you a couple of political...
I think that should be April Fool's Day.
April Fool's Day. That would be awesome. That would be incredibly awesome. I do have a political question for you. I've not really, we didn't do a show. We were not on air last week with the State of the Union. You know, by all indications, and I couldn't even watch the stuff. I couldn't even watch the clips of the stuff. I had to turn the TV off. Because, Brad, I've never seen a more pathological liar than Joe Biden. I think the only person I can compare that to is Barack Obama. There was just something about Obama when he talked. I had to turn the TV down. I just had to turn it off. I couldn't listen to him. And I can't listen to Joe Biden. But I understand it was a very partisan, in-your-face, blank-you speech. And all of his cronies out there have claimed that he was on his A game. And God knows how many drugs he had to take and how much powder. He must have went to Hunter Biden, his son, that night. I'm not trying to make light of this. I really am not. But I'm not doubting that maybe he went to Hunter Biden and said, hey, son, can you give me some of that white stuff that you've been peddling in the White House lobby that you left your bag of the other night? Because I'm going to have to go on talking to about 350 million people, and I don't want to fall asleep while I'm talking to them, and I'm not trying to make fun of that. But did you take it as a partisan speech? It was not a State of the Union, and he still dodged every issue, Brad, and he couldn't even name the girl's name right. in Georgia that got killed, and he wouldn't use the term illegal. Of all the things I heard that grieved me, that he apologized after the speech for using the term illegal in his State of the Union address when describing illegal aliens. And I want to make it clear tonight that they're not immigrants, folks. They're illegal aliens. That's just how it is. You know, they're illegals, period. It's not hard to understand. But what's your take on that State of the Union? It was not his best moment, even though the media is propping him up as it was.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can see the mental deterioration in there, the slurring of words and babbling and, incoherent things. He does it all the time. I mean, they make recordings of Trump who makes a mistake. But by the way, it's really kind of apples and oranges. Trump is out there giving speeches every day, thousands of hours of tapes out there of him speaking, and they can go back and come up with, a 60-second montage of him making mistakes. Okay, Joe Biden comes out of his cage once a month and will speak for 2 minutes, and it's constant mistakes. Let him get out on the stage and speak every day for hours and travel all over and do campaigns and all that, and he would just mentally break down. He'd melt into a pile of goo right on the spot. So, I mean, it's just typical. I mean, it's what the left does. They come to a conclusion and then go find data to support it. And that's what they're doing against Trump. And they'll find some little coherent sentence that Biden does and say, see, sharp as a tack. But one of the things that I think is so important out of this that you touched on right there is the vocabulary that the left is forcing upon us. And they keep saying that, in some sort of argument of moral high ground, they try to say that an illegal alien, calling them an illegal alien is wrong, it's immoral, it's not the American way, blah, 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 blah. They make this moral argument, and they slowly have won through the years. I mean, we can go back, and there's more of this ingrained, and it's completely, it's why Jimmy Carter put together a Department of Education so that these vocabulary things can start being built into the schools. And this is why we see the youth of the United States that has been indoctrinated into so much of this. I mean, let me point something out to you. I mean, if you go to a store and there's 50 people there working, they've got 50 workers, right? Well, here's a little thing for everybody to take home. These used to be called employees and tax-paying citizens and things like that. The term workers is from Karl Marx.
Great point.
That is where that term came from.
Thank you.
And this has been ingrained in our society.
That's exactly
all
right.
along. And they're winning this argument because, for us, we look at that and go, we don't really have a dog in the fight. What difference does it make? Let's all get back to our jobs and get something done. But to the left, they have shaped the argument.
Great point, Brad.
They're winning because we're not fighting back.
Great point.
And this is just another example of it. I mean, you can't call them illegal aliens. And now this is something they're doing constantly. While now they're saying there's 52 sexes, and yes, you may identify as this, but somebody else identifies as that. Why do they do all that? Because it wins arguments. It gets a certain group of people to contribute to their campaigns, a very vocal group that nowadays, the trans movement has become dangerous too. I mean, a lot of these murders that take place where somebody goes in with a gun and starts shooting up is some sort of angry trans person, and some of their speeches and stuff are along the lines of, I will kill anybody who says I don't have the right to use the bathroom of my choice. Well, there are other people in the universe besides you, whatever creature you are at the moment, and should there not be respect for other people's rights too? Their rights are so much more important than mine and yours and all of the audience out there listening, that they have gained the right to kill people as a result. I mean, that's effing nuts. That's
effing
craziness.
Nuts.
But yet,
exactly right,
where is the people? Where is the Republican Party?
Nowhere.
What a bunch, with a few
Nowhere.
exceptions. They're useless. And they don't argue these things. Nobody fights back in an organized manner that's a politician, or a conservative politician, or a Republican. And half the Republican Party's in bed with the Democrats.
Yeah, and
is Mitch McConnell?
Go
ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to interject. Speaking of that, Ken Buck is gone, but what it does, it leaves the Republicans now with pretty much even a slimmer majority in the House. He resigned as of next week. McConnell's out, but that's the Senate. But I think, Brad, what I'm hoping, and it's wishful thinking, we changed. We got one more Super Tuesday primary coming up next Tuesday night. We got some elections tonight. Georgia's a big state. We're going to be having a special here later tonight. But until the American voter wakes up to what you just said and changes things at the primary level with these rhino Republicans and get these people primaried, things are not going to be any different. Because, see, you can't have the same dog with just two sets of fleas. You got to change the dog out eventually. And I just don't know if the American public is ready to do that, because these people keep getting elected. And I know there's a lot of voter fraud, and that's really my next question to you tonight. Are you confident that we're any better off going into 24 than we were in 2020? You know, I remember that night I sat with you in Washington, D.C. in the middle of this firestorm that got our channels yanked, because we put people on. You know, I remember the show. It was your show that we did a special about what they actually did, and we're going to do it again. I'm just going to do it smarter. I'll do it and take it down, but I want us to do that special again where you literally outline how they stole 2020. But are you any more confident going into this year? Because I still feel troubled that they're going to do this crap again. And I don't know if they're going to use a virus this time, but they're going to do some kind of crazy crap to get people to stay at home and send mail ballots in and do the same turd that they did before. Are you any more confident going into this year than you were in 2020?
Well, I would say the electoral base, the voters that are out there, are far more in favor of Trump this time than they were last time.
Agreed.
Some of the polls that have come out have said things like 97% of everyone who voted for Trump last time is going to vote for him again. And these are people who actually voted. 83% of the Biden voters have said they will support Biden. You've got about a third of the voting bloc that distrusts and dislikes Biden. They don't necessarily like Trump more, but if that's the vote, a lot of these votes are going to go that way. And some of his numbers with the youth, the black vote, the Hispanic vote, those guys remember how much better it was under Trump than it is now under Biden. And all these things they're telling us about how inflation is coming down, you know, what a load of crap. I mean, the difference between now and Trump days is enormous as to what you could buy with $1 compared to before. I mean, that hasn't escaped anybody. So I think the economy is going to carry a lot of votes for Trump that he did not before. Now, your other half of that question is, are they going to cheat? Well, there's two things. Now, Trump has to win the nomination first so that he has standing. This is the way the law works. So he has to have standing. Once he has standing, and this is something I've mentioned through friends to him, and this is something I've said publicly a lot, and I hope I'm not the only guy saying this, but the moment he has the nomination officially and has standing, he should be filing cases in courts to stop the voting machines from being used and insist upon counting paper ballots.
That's what we do.
If he is not doing that, then he's being a dipshit about the whole thing. He absolutely has to do those cases and block everything out there that he can block to stop the cheating. Here's the problem. The guys that make the voting machines testified in Congress that those machines can be accessed by internet. That's not me saying that. That's the manufacturers testifying to Congress that those machines can be accessed by the internet. As long as those voting machines can be accessed by internet, the voting system is vulnerable. That has to be stopped. If Trump has his act together and can get some good lawyers in there to do it, which, by the way, his record of picking top-notch lawyers is not the best. He's got a problem there because he doesn't pay his lawyers. So a lot of the lawyers he's worked in the past won't work with him, and a lot of lawyers hesitate to work with him because he doesn't pay them. His argument is that, look, you, by doing my case, got way more than what I would owe you in publicity. You're world famous now because you worked for me, so I don't owe you a penny because you've already made more money that way, which there's some validity to that, but lawyers don't care. They want to be paid. And so he needs to make a deal to take that into account if that's what he wants to do, and he's not. But if he can get his act together with lawyers and get top-notch people out there going after those voting machines and vulnerabilities like that, if he can block the opportunity whether it happened or not, but if he can block the opportunity so that nobody can cheat, or at least they can't cheat wholesale, then he will win and win hands down. If it was,
Okay.
I would be willing to bet a lot of money that if we went back to the system where it was all paper ballots and it all had to be counted, and it all had to be counted before anybody goes home, before anybody shuts off the lights, and before anybody brings in any plastic cartons carrying 10,000 extra votes that just showed up, if all the counting could be done like it used to be done, I bet he would win by at least 10 points. But the other factor there is, if someone was cheating, and this is something we can go into in another program in a lot more detail, this isn't that easy. So you need data scientists who calculate how many votes are available in different places and stuff like that in order to cheat. So you have to wait till most of the voting, like you're 2/3 of the way through the voting day, the counting results, to see where you are, to know if there's enough votes to steal from this county, this county, this county, this county, to overcome the lead that Trump has. That's the way it would have to be done. So if Trump wins big enough, and this is also a hope that we have, if he wins big enough, it gets to the point where you can't cheat enough to overcome that lead. So there's two hopes in this. One, that he wins so big that you just can't overcome his lead, which is what surprised everybody in the Hillary Clinton, election against Trump, where he won, is he won so big, so many places, nobody was prepared for that. Well, I think they were well prepared in the Biden one. And so, but one of the reasons he did better. I mean, there's so many things there that are questionable. I don't know why there are not more lawsuits over the whole thing.
Me too.
But at any rate, go ahead, Chris.
I got a couple of questions for you because we got about 10 minutes here. But good points, all good points, and I've listened, and I think you're right on. And we'll just wait and see. But I think you answered the question as perfectly as you could answer it, my friend. Jenna, no, we didn't talk about this, and it's an excellent question. I'm glad you brought this up because I wanted to ask you about this too. What are your thoughts? Because Roman McDaniel has been sort of overseeing the Titanic, because we've been talking about these spineless Republicans. And the Republican National Committee, Brad, has been a joke. I mean, she's overseen every election failure for the last 8 years. And they're putting Laura Trump in as RNC leader. And Jenna's question is, how do you feel about that? Your thoughts on that? I got to tell you, and I know this may sound, I'm not happy with it. I think that it's to me, if her daddy-in-law wasn't running for president, I'd be okay with it. But you don't want to have family running. You don't want to have a political family running the country on the right, no more than you want a political family running the country on the left. Now, that's Chris's opinion. I know that may sound a little harsh to some folks, but what's your thought on that? I'm not a big fan of that. I know she's probably do a good job. It's nothing against Laura. We love Laura, so nobody send me hate mail. And he just hates the Trumps. No, we don't hate the Trumps. But there's a dynamic here that how it's going to be viewed, I guarantee you, is that you got despotism in the Republican Party. The Trumps are going to take over the whole thing. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, almost everything is a two-edged sword, and this is certainly one of those things. First of all, Ronna McDaniels she's not done a good job. She comes from a certain political perspective and hasn't supported the candidates as well as she could. She has not selected where the money goes very well. And keep in mind, I mean, that's one of the principal roles of the RNC is go get money and then support races where the Republicans can win and pick up a seat. That has not been done very well, and we've seen some of these races that should have been better supported that were not, and so it just hasn't done well. Now, Laura coming in, Laura's, I think the more clever person by comparison, if I can say it that way, hopefully relatively kindly. I think she's a sharper stick, if you will, can get more done. Now, as to her being the daughter-in-law of the Republican candidate running for president, you're right. That there is some nepotism aspects to this that's going to rub certain people wrong. But we're at kind of an interesting period in history in the race. And by the way, Jenna, that is a good question.
It is a great question. It's a great
much
question.
Appreciated. She's at a place where now she's been in this campaign from the beginning, and she's somebody that's been smart and good, along with the two older boys, is particularly the older boy, and that her husband, and they, or no, that's the second one's husband.
Yeah, Don Jr. is
second
the
son's
oldest,
wife.
Eric's the youngest,
Yeah.
and so forth. And let me just interject this, because somebody's out there saying that she's the co-chair, not the leader. What do you think the chair is? She's leader. She's going to be part of the Republican decision-making, and we already know that Roma McDaniel's Romney's niece and all, we get all that, but and you're making a great point. It's a double-edged sword, because I got to rush this on. And it's a great question, but do you think long term? Let's just say I'm with you about this year. This year's a weird year, Brad.
Yeah,
It's going to be a weird year. But long term for the Republican Party, is it a good idea? Real quick, and I got one other question for you before we say goodnight.
she's there to raise money, and I think she's as good as anybody
Okay.
could be for this year. I don't think she has any intention of staying past the election.
Okay.
So this is a short-term question only. I think in the scheme of things, even though there are negatives, she's an excellent pick.
Okay, well, good. And again, I'm not disagreeing with that. As I said, I'm looking at this long term more than. And you brought up a good point. You changed my mind. I'm with. I got a kid that comes on and helps me with the election coverage. She's like, she could be your great granddaughter. But no, I'm just kidding. But no, she wasn't a big fan of this, and I understand her viewpoint. And I guess I'm trying to weigh both viewpoints, but I see what you're saying, and I think you're right. I don't think she goes after this. Roger Hooker, great question. I'm going to wrap it up, and I'll let you take 5 minutes to do it as a final thought. How deep, how dark, how low must we get as a nation before the American public, we the people, rise up and demand justice? I think we're already demanding justice, Brad, but ain't much we can do. I mean, I know Roger's question's a good one, but I just think that they're begging us to take to the streets. They're begging us, look, this is what they did to J6. They baited these people up. They did exactly what they wanted them to do, and they have used this as a hammer for 4 years. And they want civil war, brother. They want a war in the streets. They do. I understand his question, because the frustration is out there. And the frustrations, I've got the frustration. But ultimately, until you get people in there that's putting good judges on benches, and even Republicans don't always turn out to be good judges, Brad, because, I mean, there's been some judges that Trump put on that turn out to be scumbags. So
Yeah, Chief Justice Roberts.
Roberts. Come on.
What an idiot. The guy's a jerk.
What a jerk.
Yes, it's not just a question of people rising up to vote for somebody who's good. I think there's a willingness among people to vote for somebody who's good. And we see that happening with Donald Trump. I think it's the reason why he has so much support. I don't think it's, Donald Trump is somebody that rubs a lot of people wrong for whatever reason, the way he is and all of that. I mean, he's from Queens, and a lot of people don't like the way he talks and the things he says, and there's a lot of orange man bad attitude out there. But by God, he's the one guy out there who can do something about this. If Donald Trump loses this election,
I'm going to come hide behind your garage. I'll be behind your garage. I'll take Elvis's place. I'm going to kick him out. I'm going to live behind your garage, but go ahead.
I don't know. There's room with Elvis. It's
okay.
Right in there. I think that if we lose this election and Trump is not able to get in and clean house, I mean, there's a couple layers to this, but if he's not able to get in there and clean house, then it's not going to happen for a generation. We've lost 30, 40 years, 50 years, maybe something like that, and we're going to become a poor socialist nation that's second rate and things like that. I mean, it crumbles slowly, but then it's a question of, can we come back after that point when these generations have growing up, seeing how political opposition is oppressed and persecuted and all those things. And would it be a bloody revolution at that point? Maybe. I don't know. But the federal government, and you and I talked earlier about DOJ, the federal government belongs to the Democrat Party. It is not the DOJ of the United States of America. It is the DOJ of the Democrat Party. The same thing for the FBI, the CIA, NSA, DHS, maybe to a lesser degree the military, but there's still a lot of that in the military. They're just bigger and a little bit different. But, the Department of Interior, the Department of State, they're all controlled by the left. The left doesn't even really need to win elections anymore. They don't really care if they have the majority because even if they're in the minority, what are we going to do about anything? You give an order to the Department of State to do X, Y, Z, they just don't do it. We saw how that operated under Trump the first time around. Those places cannot be fixed with who is there. And is somebody going to come in and chop off all the leadership heads and start drawing from the ranks beneath to find good people to turn these organizations around? And I don't think, first of all, that's not an easy thing to do. First, I don't think anybody has the huevos to do it except Trump. But the problem with Trump is he doesn't understand government very well. And is he going to, this is something I've said before, for Trump to change things, he needs to bring in and surround himself with maybe 100 people, more or less like me. And what I'm saying is, it's not just to be a conservative. He has to find war fighters, guys that have been in wars, like myself, albeit from an intelligence perspective. I've been in wars. This shit doesn't scare me. I've seen how this happens. He needs military war fighters,
I'll agree.
Boots on the ground guys. He needs law enforcement war fighters, guys that were boots on the ground, and he needs intelligence guys, war fighters that were boots on the ground. He surrounds himself with 100 or so of those guys, and then they start looking for the right people underneath him in all of these organizations. And if he gets a good vice president who can come along behind him and keep all this up for one more Trump term and then 2 terms of that vice president who becomes president, and we've got a good period of time there, a 12-year period of time for all this stuff to be implemented, that's the way it gets turned around. But if he does not do that, if he brings in all these jackass former politician bureaucrats, he will never get it done, because a former congressman does not understand how to get stuff done, and they're afraid to do it anyway. You got to get people who are brave, who've seen this shit, who aren't afraid of fighting a war, who will go out there and get it done. If he does not do that, we're screwed.
I'm with you,
That's
buddy.
the bottom line.
But it's been another great interview. You never disappoint, and I wish I could keep you for 2 hours. And listen, I mean this, all jokes aside. Of all my guests that I've had through these years, I truly do get the most favorable mail as far as political guests go. You are the top. James is, you and him both, y'all are both great. Eric Caron's another one. We've just got a lot of great people. Tony Branco, I'm just honored that we're entering our 7th year, and one of the greatest privileges I've had is folks like yourself that I've got to meet, and I've learned a million things listening to you, and I do encourage you. I mean this, all serious jokes aside. You encourage our people, and I appreciate what you said tonight and all this, and I'm with you, buddy. Look, I hope that the American people will rise up and do what's right in November. And I think you're right. If the elections are fair and square, Trump's going to rout Joe Biden 80-20. I think.
Yeah.
I hope so. Listen, I appreciate you. I'm going to say goodnight to these folks off camera, and I'll see you. We'll get you back on in a few weeks, maybe 1st of April somewhere, and we'll do we might just plan an April Fool's. Alien report, the CIA, that's the first Monday night in April, actually. So hang loose on that and check your calendar, and we might just do something really. We might come on and do what Orson Welles did, the War of the Worlds, and claim aliens have taken over the country. Let me tell you, the way that the nutty,
but they have. They're illegal aliens.
The nutty world is out there. Some people would believe it, and I'd be calling in and saying, "Is Chris abducted? Is Brad abducted?" So, anyway, bless you, my friend. Thank you again. Great job tonight.
Let me give a shameless plug if I can.
Yes,
Chris. Let me give a shameless plug if I can.
Yes.
Everyone who's interested, please feel free to visit me at my website, intelreform.org, and I'm president of the organization Americans for Intelligence Reform.
Yes.
Okay, that's my shameless plug, Chris.
Well, we got it. We had your shameless plug already up there, but thank you, friend. I'm glad you did, because I was going to mention it, buddy. God bless you, friend. I'll see you soon. Take care, my friend.
All right, Chris.
Brad Johnson, everybody. Put some fire in that house for him tonight. What a great guy. We're grateful that he could come on and be with us tonight. And we hope that you enjoyed him. I sure enjoyed him. There was a comment, and I want to just mention something. I think it was old Chicky Mama or somebody of that, and she made a good point. She says that nepotism sometimes works in workplaces, and because the kids are scared to embarrass their parents and basically feels that Laura Trump will do a good job. Folks, look, what I was saying to Brad, when me and Magdalene first talked about it, I did not feel as warm and fuzzy about it. I'm warming to it. I see Brad's point. She will raise a lot of money, and right now the Republican National Committee needs a lot of money. I don't think she'll do anything to embarrass her daddy-in-law. There are some positives. I do see Magdalene's point too, and you don't want a political dynasty on the right no more than you want a political dynasty on the left. I know we think we do, but the truth of the matter is that this country, folks, I've said this many times, if you think, and there are people that do, if you think that President Trump getting elected in November is going to bring peace and a kumbaya moment to America, and it's going to bring all this goodwill from Washington and goodwill from the media and goodwill from the Democrats, it ain't. It ain't. We're going to have World War freaking III. I'm telling you, it's going to be ugly. It was ugly for 4 years, from 2016 to 2020. We all remember it. I remember it. It's already starting. I mean, the same rhetoric that's out there tonight was out there. The difference is now he's fighting legally for his life in these court cases, and a lot of them are falling apart. We didn't get to the report out about Fani Willis tonight and Liz Cheney. We'll probably deal with that with James Thursday night. Now, we're not done tonight. We did have to go early. Brad has to go early for family matters and reasons that is his personal matter, and I don't want to get into it, but when he comes on, we have to have him on early at night. And so I'm grateful that he was with us. I know it was we didn't have as big an audience because it was earlier, but that's fine. You can watch the replay if you weren't here live, and I want to thank everybody for being with us tonight. But we're not done. We got some elections going on tonight at 10 o'clock. We'll have Magdalene Rose here for about a half hour. We're not going to keep you till midnight. But we're just going to go over the results. It's likely Trump may clinch the nomination. You heard Brad tonight say when he gets the official nomination, he can do a lot of things legally as the official Republican nominee that he can't do right now. And I hope that he will do what Brad is telling. Brad is communicating with President Trump through back channels, and he's trying to get President Trump to listen to what he's saying, and I sure hope President Trump will do that, because that's a smart man that we just had on this network, and he's a good man. He's a good friend, and he's a good man at heart. He loves this country. He served this country faithfully for 30 years, protecting us from enemies, foreign and domestic, and I'm glad to call him my friend tonight. And there's a few and far between these days, and I want to thank him for being the kind of guest he is and the information that he gave you tonight, and I hope that you enjoyed that. So we will be back here in a few hours at 10, so go get you some supper and so forth. Jason Miller is definitely in the house. Dynasty and Dynasty. Dynasty. Kill ZELLE May, we've always known who the enemies of the state are. I don't think that's a memo tonight. We've always known who the enemies of the state are. But I'm going to tell you who the real enemies of the state are the American citizens that do nothing to stand up and fight for the country. They're worse than even the government people. Because, folks, it's on us tonight. I've had this plaque, and we're working on a new graphic as we get into the spring, and we're going to have this on it. But I look at this every day, and I want you to know this is the kind of government that I want right here. This was what Abraham Lincoln gave a speech about back in 1863 at the Gettysburg Address. After it was right before the Civil War ended, and he was trying to beg the people to come back and form a government again that was free of slavery. It was a union that he wanted to see. It was a vision that he had. He died for it ultimately. He was assassinated a few years later. But this is in this speech, these words have rung very deep. Of the people, for the people, and by the people, shall not perish from off this earth. That's what Abraham Lincoln envisioned for this country during the Civil War, and that's what I'm envisioning tonight. I'm not sure I'm going to see it in my lifetime. Things are not looking too good right now, but we can pray. We can at least pray for it, right? We can hope for it, but we can't stop fighting for it. We can't stop fighting for it. That's why we do the TheMcFiles every night. That's why we've been doing the McFiles for 6 years. That's why I've got guests like Brad Johnson. That's why I bring guests like Eric Carnall and James Akers and Anthony Tony Branco and others that come on and plead and plead and plead. Marie Miller, our border buddies, AJ and Andy Louderback, all of these guys that come on. Rolando Rodriguez, all of these folks that fight. And we've got some new guests coming in March, later this month, in April. So we got to fight, because this is what ultimately we all want right here. We want a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. So help us God, that will not perish off of this earth. And I will tell you this, if we don't get that soon, if we don't get something soon, we are not going to have a country. And I hope that you enjoyed them. Jenna, thank you for that good question tonight. I appreciate that. And it was a great question. Roger, thank you for your question. And we do appreciate you guys for being with us tonight. If you didn't catch us live, go back, listen to the replay. It's right here on our news network. Now, stick around. We got the youngin' coming on tonight at 10. And she is such a precious kid, Magdalene Rose. She's going to be our co-host. We got some great news in the next Tuesday night. We got Super Tuesday. That'll strictly be our show next Tuesday night. It'll be the second Super Tuesday. Trump, if he don't wrap it up tonight, he's definitely going to wrap it up next Tuesday night. But he's got a good chance of wrapping it up. Biden will too on the Democratic side. So you're going to have a rematch. Only the seventh time in history that you've had a rematch in the presidential race. It's the first time since 1912 that an incumbent president has went against the same opponent that he went and defeated in the other election. So it's got some history behind this if this takes place tonight. I heard RFK, I got to say this before I leave tonight, RFK Jr. was on Cavuto this afternoon, and I heard Nikki Haley echo all this crap about these polls that claim that 70 to 80% of the country don't want to see a Trump Biden rematch. Well, you sure could have fooled me, because they both have routed their opponents in the primaries. So if the Republicans don't want to see Trump run again, they sure have a weird way of showing it. And if the Democrats don't want Biden to run again, they have a weird way of showing it. I'm going to say something. It's going to sound a little ugly, just a little bitty, tiny bit cutting. But these 80% that don't want to see a rematch is likely those that sit on their ASSs and didn't go out and vote. They didn't go out and vote. Some of them, not all of them. So if you're out there complaining about the country and you didn't vote, stop complaining, because you changed the course of events at the ballot box. That's where we change it. And I will have my I vote sticker on, not tonight because I voted last Tuesday. But you go out and vote. If you don't want a rematch, go vote. But once this primary is over with, we as Republicans, we as conservatives, we've got no choice but to coalesce around Donald Trump. You Dems out there that want to coalesce against Joe Biden, you have at it. I ain't coalescing against or around Joe Biden. I'm coalescing against Trump. And I'm all in on the Trump train again in 24. Just in case there's rumors out there that has changed. No, it's not changed. I think that I've got a healthier perspective of Trump this time around than I did the first time. And it's served me well in my judgment about what's going on in the nation. And I pray it will serve us all well if we will have a healthier view of who he is and what he can do and what he can't do. And that's just some wisdom on a Tuesday night. We'll give you some more tonight. I've got a youngin' that shows me up how smart she is. She's so much smarter than I am. And I'm gonna let her discuss all this with us tonight for about a half hour. And so please be with us at 10, right back here on the News Network, for an update on the elections, and Trump may do that. But I'll amen myself. Tonight on that. And I hope you have a good night, everybody. I'm going to let you go now and enjoy your dinner. We'll be back here around 10 Eastern for Miss Magdalene Rose. Until then, Chris McDonald for the one and only Brad Johnson and Elvis up there. Have a good night, everybody. I'll see you later.